Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is the show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between. So let's get started. This week I had a pretty average number of comics this week with 9 comics, and number 9 for me is Parker Girls issue 4, and this is a book that I want to enjoy a bit more. I do like Terry Moore's work a lot, and this one just doesn't really feel like it has as much of a direction as previous runs, just because it is such an ensemble cast and characters that we've seen in his previous books as well. It just doesn't really feel like it has a focus, kind of similarly to Serial, but at least Serial was really only focusing on those two characters, the serial killer, the girl from Rachel Rising. And this one, you have Kachu, you have the Parker Girls, and then you have what's going on with the world of Strangers in Paradise and Terry Moore and co. So yeah, this one just didn't do it for me as much. I just feel like the progression of the plot has been kind of slow and a little scattered. But the artwork is always good for this book. I love the black and white nature of the series. Now let's move on to number 8. And number 8 for me, a little lower than last month, and that is Batman issue 131. And this is going to be a bigger topic for the video. Are Elseworld books better than mainstream books? And you'll have to wait and see and continue the video once we get to our Elseworld book to discuss that. But this was kind of where the topic came from, with Batman actually exploring an Elseworld story and in another Elseworld book that came out this week. Now, on this end of the spectrum, I felt like I've seen this Elseworld story before. And I've seen this narrative for Batman before, of like, oh, what happens if Gotham doesn't have a Batman? I mean, Scott Snyder did it, Batman becoming just Bruce Wayne for a while. Like, the concept of this has been done before. And I wasn't feeling this because we've seen Batman in Elseworld story, or this version of Elseworld story, and Gotham being the setting so often. So this one just didn't do it as much for me, especially because we had such a great build-up with Failsafe and the major cliffhanger of issue 130. And we did change artists in this one as well, so it's kind of harder to get into the narrative because I do think Jorge's pencils were a bit stronger. The colors were a lot stronger in that previous run, or that previous arc as well. So overall, giving this 2.5 stars, and that is number 8. Moving on to number 7, which is Spider-Man issue 4. I actually got this on whim. I've been reading Spider-Man, but I was thinking of dropping this book. Then this week came and there weren't a lot of books. I was like, all right, why not pick up Spider-Man? And I actually thought this issue was a slight improvement. I do think it continues to have the same struggles it's been having, which is there's too much going on. There are too many characters. But what I liked about this issue a little bit more is that Peter wasn't in it. We actually got to see other characters explored, and then in the end, you get the deep cut of Peter Palmer. And it's like, all right, we definitely know that Dan Slott knows Spider-Man's mythos a lot, but what is he going to do with it? And I'm curious about that. I don't know if I'm so curious for issue 5. It will have to depend on the week, if it's as light as this week. But yeah, because it continues to have the same issues I've been having, which is so crowded. Most of the issue, it's hard to follow what's going on. So overall, I'm going to give that 2.5 stars, and that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, which is Captain America, Sentinel of Liberty, issue 8. I really love this creative team. I think the art is so outstanding, especially to try to bring Captain America as a flagship book again. And then I just feel like the writers understand the voices of Captain America, but also understands the voices of these supporting characters they bring. I really loved how Emma Frost was brought into the fold. I like her voice here. I liked how Emma interacts with Captain America, because they just have such a different personality. And also, I do feel like there's some good plot progression with the invaders coming along. We have not a new team, but a team return, and it's building up to this kind of bigger story, maybe even affecting the rest of the Marvel Universe with some of the teases they have with the upcoming events of Captain America. So I just like the progression of it. I like the characters, and this was definitely more of a character-driven issue, and you just got to see people bounce off each other. So overall, giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, a book that I was pleasantly surprised by, and that is Scarlet Witch issue 1. I was a little nervous about this book because I was like, oh, is it too late to have a Scarlet Witch book? Not that it's ever too late, but was this the perfect timing? We all love WandaVision, but WandaVision is not as popular as it was when it first came out. You know, people are not talking about it as much. So it's like, oh, should have this book come out during WandaVision? And I like that this issue does a good job at balancing, okay, the elements that we liked about WandaVision. We have Darcy here, we have Quicksilver in this one, but also kind of building its own world. And it felt like it had its own character, especially, you know, what I like about superhero runs is when it feels different. It feels like it has a new flavor. And with Scarlet Witch, you really can do that because there hasn't been many Scarlet Witch ongoings. And really what hooked me on this was because of the cliffhanger and the art. Obviously having such a premier team, Steve Orlando, and then also having Sarah Bocelli on artwork. I mean, it's amazing. But the ending of the issue is Vision coming back and you know, Scarlet Witch saying, hey, that's kind of my daughter, and what the hell that story is going to bring. So like, all right, I'm already kind of invested because of that ending. You know, the other characters, the newer characters that were introduced, I thought were slower in this issue, but curious to see where it goes. I think it was a good foundation for the book. So overall, giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Radiant Pink issue 2, and I love what they did with the logo because she is displaced in another time. I just thought that was such smart layout for this cover. But this issue, it's really about these girls trying to get to know each other as they're stuck in this weird world. I'm curious to see where the relationship's gonna go. I enjoyed it. I don't know if there was particularly a lot of standout moments, but it was a good build-up issue, or a good building of these characters and their relationship. And I like the video game references. I thought were fun, and I'm just curious to see where this world goes and where these two characters go overall. And I like the emotion of what happened to Radiant Pink's loved ones as, you know, she's missing, and how they're reacting to it. I thought was pretty fun. Artwork is pretty solid. I still have the issue of, I think the coloring's a little dark for, you know, I feel like a lighter, you know, a radiant pink is what it's called. So it feels like darker pinks than you would, you would think would come for this book. So overall, giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is Goblin issue 3. I feel like this book just keeps improving every issue. Even though I don't know if it's saying plot-wise too much. It's not moving in that direction, but it's a very good character story and a good character study where we get to see Goblin dealing with his sins, dealing with the idea of maybe trying to kill his sins, which is, in this case, Queen Goblin. And then him deciding, no, that's not what really I should be doing. And it's just interesting to see a character, I wouldn't even know if I would call him an anti-hero, but seeing, you know, a pompous guy like Norman Osborn try to deal with guilt. And I just find that fascinating and different and new for this character. And I like the art. I think the grittiness works really well for it. So overall, giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, I really like the direction of this book, and that is Fantastic Four issue 3. And issue 1 and 2, I wasn't sure about because they were focusing on such specific events, and they both did kind of the same event. This one, you know, this is just Johnny. This is not Alicia and Thing, where you had to focus on 2 characters, and this is not Sue and Reed, where you focus on 2 characters. It was just a journey about Johnny, and that's what I liked, and it felt different from those first 2 issues, because he was actually dealing with what was happening in New York, and how they were reacting to the Fantastic Four. So it felt like there was some more movement to the story as well. And I just like Johnny. It was just very classic Johnny, and him being a different type of Johnny as well. And the villain, I think, fit for this arc very well as he's trying to figure out who he is in this world where the Fantastic Four is hated. And then the cliffhanger, we actually get to see some movement of the actual Fantastic Four and what the team's going to do with what's happened in New York, because we don't have any answers. And then also seeing that the Thing and Alicia are in trouble as well. And the artwork's really good for this book. I think it was funny. The action was good. It felt classic in a lot of ways. So overall, giving this 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, I think this is the obvious one, especially if you see the title of this, but it's Dark Knights of Steel issue 9. And I do want to talk about the topic a little bit before I get into this particular issue. Now, the reason I came up with the topic of are Elseworld stories better than mainstream books? You know, Dark Knights of Steel really feels that way for me, because I feel especially with Tom Taylor's writing in general, I've really enjoyed a lot of his Elseworld stories, like Injustice Gods Among Us, where I'm like, oh, can a video game adaptation really be that good? And there's beats that are done, or deaths that are done, or big moments that are done that can't be done in a mainstream book. Those gutsy, weighty things. And if they are, they're going to probably be put back to normal. In an Elseworld story, you can really take off those cuffs and do whatever you want. And that's something I've enjoyed a lot about Elseworlds. And it kind of reminds me of indie comics, where it's a creator-owned book. You really are allowed to do whatever you want. And I think in that regard, that's why I tend to like Elseworld stories even more than mainstream books, because you do have those cuffs broken, and you get to do these big moments. And this issue, there's a lot of great moments. So with issue 9, we're kind of building to the end of at least this chapter of Dark Knights of Steel. I think they're planning to do more of the series, especially with its success. And everything kind of comes to a head here, where everyone starts to realize maybe the things that have happened aren't true, even though it's all in the mix of Wonder Woman's mother dying. So they're all trying to kill each other, but they're also realizing, oh, maybe that wasn't Lara who did that. And in the end, it is revealed to be a white Martian. And the biggest cliffhanger, and again, something I don't think could ever be done in mainstream books, but could be done in an Elseworld book, is that Alfred is a Martian manhunter. So he's the Martian Manhunter of this world, which I did not see coming. And what does that mean for Alfred? What does this mean about the Martian story as a whole? Because I think we all figured it was going to be a Martian character, but I didn't figure it'd unravel this way. And I just thought it was really well paced, this issue. I'm interested in the fallout, because a lot of action happened here, and I think there's going to be a lot of more conversations in these upcoming issues of, do we go to war? Do we go do we go to war with each other, or do we work together to go to war with the white Martians? And what does this mean for the interpersonal relationships? And because it was such a heavy action issue, you got to applaud the artist with so many sprawling scenes of soldiers, which I thought was so well done here. And yeah, overall, it's just a really fun issue, and you get a lot of still good character moments to shine. You got Black Canary and Green Arrow. You have Batman and Superman, so there's a lot of great moments in this issue. So overall, giving that 4 stars. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Let me know in the comments below what were your favorite comics of the week for a chance to be featured on the next episode. And last week's viewer's pick of the week was She-Hulk, and here are some comments about that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.